From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your morning update.
Well, good morning, everyone. Before we get to the fires and, essentially the bad news, let's kind of take a step back. Enjoy what Northern California has to offer. This is a great photo sent in by Austin Grissom. This is what he calls above the fog. And you can see the fog there kind of off into the valleys there. I'm not exactly sure where this is taken from. I want to say around the Alder Point area, but I don't know for sure. And of course, you can see some of the high clouds kind of wisping on by. If you want to share your photos, see them right here on the morning update or on Coffee with Kruger. Also on social media, all you got to do is share it from the free Weather NorCal app. That's how Austin did it. And that's how you can do it as well, from your iPhone and also from your Android. Also, before we get to the fires, we have another segment here on this on the morning update. And that is, before we get into the detailed forecast, we get you through a real quick forecast for the day, just so you can really get the information you need if you're in a bit of a hurry. So we take a look at Kruger's Quickcast here for today on August 6th. Taking out the door this morning. Now, as you're heading out the door this morning in the valley, temperature should be somewhere in the low 70s, mainly low 60s for the higher elevations, although in the eastern mountains, maybe just a tad warmer. And of course, we're still seeing a lot of that fog and low clouds along the coast with temperatures there in the mid 50s. So here's what we expect today temperature wise. Temperatures are going to most likely be above 100 degrees in most spots. There may be a bit of a delta influence in some areas like Corning and Willows, but otherwise in the 90s for most of the higher elevations, and those temperatures in the mid 60s out along the coast. Looking at your 7-day outlook, starting off with the valley, temperatures mostly staying in the triple digits at least through the weekend, but I do expect a bigger drop in our temperatures by the time we go into early next week. Taking a look at your coast, inland, and for Trinity County. So of course the coast, no big changes. Mostly cloudy skies, especially that fog overnight, maybe some burning off of that fog in the afternoon hours. But temperatures inland mainly in the 90s, mid to upper 90s, but we can see a nice dip in our temperatures by the weekend and early next week. Even Trinity County seeing upper 90s for Saturday, Sunday, but in the mid 90s by Monday of next week. A bit haze, a little bit of smoke out there, especially to the north and east of the valley. But there you can see temperatures for Alturas, low 90s by the time we do get into Friday through the weekend, upper 80s, in fact mid 80s for Mount Shasta by Monday. All right, so that's a quick look at your forecast. Let's go into a bit more detail. We're going to start off with the weather headlines, and we have a slight warming trend. We're noticing it was warmer yesterday, expect to be a little bit warmer here for today. We do have the typical summer heat this week. I mean, nothing unusual when we're talking heat, right? It's just hot. It's the typical hot that we see here in Northern California. Hot, dry. Unfortunately, those winds, once again, probably picking up again this afternoon. That will most likely create more activity that we don't want to see with the park fire. We do have a slight dip in our highs this weekend, and especially going into early next week. All right, I want to show you the satellite image here. And many of you who were out and about yesterday know exactly what I'm talking about. When you're looking in the vicinity of where the park fire is, you saw the big plume of smoke through a good portion of the day. There were several columns that developed, and that's where we start to see problems. When those columns develop, that creates its own wind, and the winds come in all directions around that fire and help to, honestly, for lack of a better term, add fuel to the fire, unfortunately. So there were plenty, speaking of that, there was plenty of dry fuels out there in that Mill Creek drainage that, I mean, it just took off. It exploded. And we saw that heat signature here looking a lot like this through a good portion of the day yesterday. Now, as anticipated, it took a while, but we're beginning to see it relax a little bit here in the early morning hours. But unfortunately, as we get more of that daytime heating, we get more of that instability, we'll probably be looking at this heat signature looking a lot larger here going again into tomorrow. So let's take a look at the fire perimeter. And here is something I really want to stress when we're looking at this. New information is coming out. By the time I record this information, quite honestly, is fairly old. And I'll be honest with you, we're probably going to be looking at a different fire perimeter here as we go probably even half hour to an hour after I record this. So here's what I want you to do. If you want the latest, go to Coffee with Kruger. You can watch live at 7 a.m. Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, YouTube, from also social media on Facebook. At 7 a.m., we go into bigger depth, kind of dive deep into the fires. It's interactive if you're on social media. You can ask questions. And of course, the latest fire perimeter. And again, it's probably going to be different than the one we're looking at right here. But as of last night, and no new data has come in early this morning, 406,579 acres at 34% containment. It's almost guaranteed that, again, overnight, we've seen this fire grow. It's probably larger acreage. Hopefully the containment is larger, but of course there are no guarantees on that. All right, so let's zoom it in on where the growth is. The solid red is the perimeter from 24 hours ago. This right here, the transparent red, that is the new growth that we did see throughout the day on Monday. And you can see it progressed to the north and east. Here's the Mill Creek drainage. Of course, I've got an arrow pointing to Mill Creek itself. And then, of course, you've got Mineral. So it has moved closer to the community of Mineral at about 6 miles. By the way, this area here is approximately 2 miles. So you can see just how quickly and easily it's really grown in those fuels. So it has, within the drainage, burned on either side of the drainage there, but it did kind of reach over the top. They were hoping that maybe it wouldn't do that, but unfortunately it did kind of spread over the ridges there, and then of course those flatter areas. But as we kind of go through the drainage right here, you can see, of course, it goes right into Mill Creek, and then you've got Mineral over here. So just kind of give you some perspective on the vicinity of where that fire perimeter is in relation to these communities. So I showed you earlier the distance to Mineral, which is about 6 miles. It's not that much farther away from Mill Creek at about 6.5 miles. Now, if we were to take a line from here, it would be actually more like 7 miles. So we want to take that closest vicinity here and where it is. Now, again, keep in mind, someone was making a comment a while back, you shouldn't show as the crow flies. But this isn't. You see this line? You see how it's following the contours of the area? So it is taking into account that it has a bit of more of a distance to travel than just a straight line. So I want you to take that into account when you're looking at these lines. They do follow the terrain, so it does take that into account. All right, what we're going to do now is take in some of the other fires. These really haven't changed. In fact, the Mill fire, I believe it's been 6 days since we've received any kind of report on that. It's been a few days for the Hill fire at 91% containment, and still sitting at about 92% containment out at the Shelley fire. So again, if you want the latest on the fires, I want you to watch Coffee with Kruger live at 7 a.m. And if you can't, go to weathernorcal.com and you'll easily see a banner that says Coffee with Kruger on it. Click on that and you'll be able to watch the recorded version. That typically goes down right after the live show. So around 8 o'clock, maybe shortly after that. There you can see the air quality still very poor in the vicinity of the fire, but most of that smoke plume has been moving to the north and east, mainly away from a good portion of the valley. So speaking of the smoke and what the forecast is looking like, again, we're probably going to see some more activity flare up through the afternoon, and it'll push that smoke to the east, northeast here throughout the day today. So places like Chester, Susanville, you'll probably be dealing with some poor air quality again. Tomorrow morning, that smoke kind of settles down, hopefully as the fire begins to settle, but then we'll probably begin to see some more activity going into your Wednesday as well. However, I will say this, it looks like humidity levels may be increasing slightly on Wednesday, and the winds may be dying down a little bit, but we'll take a look at that here. Right now, you can see this afternoon, there are those winds picking up, unfortunately. They do subside overnight into tomorrow morning, but then by tomorrow afternoon, well, yeah, the winds are picking back up again. So again, it's that pattern that we've been consistent with. And again, even before the fires started, this is the pattern we've been dealing with here pretty much all summer long so far. So we look at the humidity levels. Yes, we're seeing some decent recovery overnight, but look at the humidity levels this afternoon. Once again, very dry. Now, as we go into Wednesday morning, actually not seeing very good recovery. The recovery is going to be a little bit worse going into tonight and tomorrow. So we may see that fire kind of linger and burn fairly strong into the overnight hours. And then, of course, as we go into Wednesday afternoon, once again, we've got very dry conditions continuing to be the factor here. I want to show you the fire weather risk. So where we want to focus on are the areas of orange and yellow. This is where we have the highest. So if a new fire should start, these are the areas, especially in orange and even yellow, where the fires could spread very rapidly should a new fire start. So again, we take you to Wednesday. Unfortunately, it looks like that fire danger may actually increase a little bit here as we go into Wednesday afternoon, including some of those higher elevations as well. All right, here's the fire potential. And again, it's the winds, right? Along with many other factors. It's very complicated, but you get the idea. This particular forecast model is showing, yeah, the winds are going to be strong, so this is where you're going to have that elevated fire danger. And so that's obviously bad news because that's within the fire perimeter of the park fire. So here's what's going on, kind of big picture. You've got the monsoon moisture over here. That's what was impacting us over this past weekend. It's moved on out of here, and I don't anticipate it to move on in. This right here is moisture coming in from a tropical system. This is going to be moving through us, at least the moisture associated with it will be moving through tomorrow, but mainly in the form of some high, maybe some mid-level clouds. But today, we actually may see that fog burn off along the coast. It comes back in here tomorrow morning. And tomorrow afternoon, there are some of those clouds kind of filtering through with that moisture coming in from those tropical systems. But I don't anticipate it to really increase that humidity by a whole lot. Maybe a little bit. It may feel a little bit more muggy than we're used to, but bottom line, this is not going to be that significant. And of course, we are seeing a little more of that fog here for many parts of the coast. Now again, we talk about that monsoon moisture. This is where it is right here, right? You see that? But it's not really moving into our area here, unfortunately. So what that means is we stay dry, we stay hot as well. But again, yes, the added rain is nice, but we don't want to see those thunderstorms. So as long as that monsoon moisture stays to our east, we don't really have that threat for thunderstorms. But there is some cooler weather on the way. We have that to look forward to, but it's going to take a while. We still got to get through today, tomorrow, and even into Thursday with that heat kind of building back in. But as we get toward the end of the week and through the weekend, this is going to slowly push this out. And then the first shot of cooler air is going to come down. Not a very strong shot, but a cool shot of some air. This will help to drop our temperatures down slightly for the weekend. But there'll be a reinforcing shot of air coming in behind that right here that'll help to drop our temperatures down even more by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. This right here, a welcome sight in the sense that it's going to bring us cooler temperatures, pushing that heat back down to our south and east. And you'll see that in the 10-day trend, at least for Redding. Temperatures going up, they start to slowly ramp back down through the weekend, dropping below 100 degrees. Yeah, very nice by the time we do get into Monday through Thursday of next week. All right, let's switch gears, talk about those wave heights. They are increasing a little bit here for today. And then as we go into your Wednesday, you have to look closely, but you don't see much change there. So we look at the marine forecast. North winds at 15 to 20 knots. That's the increase. They're going to be increasing throughout the day today. Winds from the northwest at 5 feet at 7 seconds. Patchy dense fog. There will most likely be some kind of small craft advisory later this afternoon into the evening. All right, here's your Trinity County neighborhood forecast. You can see those temperatures around 100 degrees or higher through the week. Temperatures dropping maybe just below 100 degrees by the weekend and especially for early next week. We take you your North Coast neighborhood forecast, mid-60s here for the coast. We take you to the inland, obviously much warmer there. Could get up to about 100 degrees tomorrow. That's the peak. And then temperatures start to drop again, low 90s by the weekend and early next week. Your Siskiyou County neighborhood forecast, 95 degrees out in Gazelle, 93 for Weed. Dunsmuir about 96. Look at that. By Monday, Mount Shasta, you're down to the 80s. Oh yeah. Next week, definitely looking much more pleasant. It's hazy, smoky. This is the direction where most of the smoke is going to go, off to the east and northeast of where the fire is. So there you can see, of course, temperatures are dropping there as well. By Monday, 88 degrees for Alturas. Here's your eastern mountains, a bit hazy, maybe today and of course tomorrow as well, and smoky. It just depends on where you are. The plume of smoke really is going to be very centralized over some areas like Chester, for example, and not to mention even Susanville. So let's take a look at your valley neighborhood forecast with temperatures upper 90s to about 100 degrees here. Corning 99, 97 for Hamilton City as well as Willows. But Chico, Los Molinos, a high of about 101 degrees. We take you up north, 102 for Red Bluff, 104 for the city of Shasta Lake. Redding, 104 and 103 out in Lakehead. So looking at your 7-day outlook for Redding, those temperatures should start to slowly drop after tomorrow. Still over 100 degrees or right around 100 degrees this weekend. Most likely dropping to the upper 90s by Monday.
We're the locals down the street. The neighbor you come to for advice. A nest egg for the golden years. A loan or a new account for that growing business. What started in Chico 50 years ago has taken us all around California, providing big bank lending power and high-tech service, while keeping our relationships personal. We're still the locals down the street, no matter where your street might be. Tri-Counties Bank, California's local bank.